The Prop Master with Robert Walker asks, can you talk about your disc sander? Yes, I have a disc sander that is the best disc sander. That's the way I think of it. One of the great ways to get exposed to tools is to work in other people's shops. And at Industrial Light and Magic, they had this disc sander. And it is a magnificent beast. It is called a Max Universal 16-inch disc sander, DISC. If you put Max Universal 16-inch into Google, you will find a picture of it. It is big. It is made of cast iron. It has a 16-inch platen that is half-inch thick aluminum. It can spin for up to 25 minutes after you turn it off. And with a good 100 grit sandpaper sheet on it, you can practically feed a 2x4 into this thing. It runs on 220 volts, so I've got a little voltage converter on it that steps up 110 to 220. It doesn't work in perpetuity. Like, I think if you went more than 25 minutes, it would crap the bed because it would overheat. But I never, ever, ever have used the disc sander for that long. It's just not something that happens. So I use this disc sander at ILM a lot, and I took note that it just didn't have any of the drawbacks of other disc sanders. Like most of us, when we were beginning makers, bought one of those belt disc sander combos, and there's a million of them. And in my opinion, it's a great first tool to have. It's great to have a 4x24 belt and a little 8-inch disc. The problem is that you can't really take off a lot of stock with those. You got to go gingerly and you got to go slow. With the big one, you don't have to wait. And I'm impatient. I like to work quickly. I like to iterate quickly. So, I like to cut something out so it's 1/8 of an inch too big on the bandsaw and then take it over to the disc sander and just like slowly turn it until it's absolutely perfectly round. In fact, I just finished a one-day build I'm in the middle of finishing a one-day build of the Aliens motion tracker, and this front disc was made using a compass and a pencil line, and then I cut it on the bandsaw very roughly, and then just like 3 minutes on the disc sander, just slowly turning it right there. I'm a huge fan of the tool. It also has air dust retrieval, and I have it plumbed into my system. So when I'm working with something noxious like, but antler. I built a Aldo Raines knife from Inglourious Bastards, and it's got an elk handle. And I talked about it during the build. Man, if you've ever sanded or ground or cut any kind of antler or bone in your shop, it is just the worst freaking smell, and it's evolutionarily awful. Like, you don't just find it unpleasant, you find that you want to run in the other direction. It's like they found that the best shark repellent in the world is the smell of rotting dead sharks, which completely makes sense. If sharks should be sensitized to two things, it's the smell of dinner and the smell of death, right? Like, that's all you need in terms of your programming. My disc sander remains. It was the first big tool I bought here in the space when I moved in here. I found it on Craigslist for about $600, which frankly, for a local pickup, it's not that bad. That's a pretty reasonable price for such a thing. I even found the original catalog for my Max Universal. They made tons and tons and tons of them. Like I said, not necessarily cheap, but it's one of those things where it never craps out no matter how hard I'm feeding something into it. And that means a lot to me. It means I can work really quickly. Shane Shellenbarger says, do you find it more satisfying to start from scratch to build a tool or take an existing tool and restore it, making modifications so it better suits your needs? Interesting. I had glanced over this question, and weirdly, because I wasn't reading carefully, I thought it was a slightly different question. But is it more satisfying to start from scratch to build a tool or to take an existing tool and restore it? It is much more satisfying for me to take an existing tool and modify it. Most specifically, I like antique tools for the handles and the grips they have. I was in the hardware store and I needed a file handle and I bought one and it's plastic and it worked for my file just fine. But I was thinking, this is just gross. And then I went on eBay, not gross, but it's like, didn't feel great. Actually, I'll be right back. I'm going to get a prop to show you. So I went on eBay and I searched file handles, and lo, reader, I found boxes of file handles available for like $15 to $20 for a box of 20. And I went and I began to remount all of my files into wooden file handles because these feel better. Norma's taking a picture. Yes, this is a file I like on the lathe. All my files now have these kind of handles because they just feel better. So I prefer taking apart old tools and modifying them than working with brand new tools. I'll give you another example, which is my compound square. So this is a modern adjustable compound square, and it's fine. It's fine, but frankly, when you operate this and you feel it, and then you compare it to this like 40-year-old Starrett one, it's such an education, and I recommend you do this. Like, take a new tool and feel how it feels, and then feel an older one. Do you hear the difference? Let's do that one more time in my microphone. Wait. That's the new one. Here's the old one. This is a tiny difference. It might even be hard to measure the difference, but this one's been ground with more precision, the old one. And frankly, you know, modern manufacturing has done incredible things to make unbelievable devices available to such a huge number of people. Starrett compound squares have never been cheap, but there's a reason for that. And they are cheap if you go looking for the older ones. They are relatively affordable if you go looking for the older ones. And that's what I did. I had been using this one for a long time, and I thought, maybe there could be a better world than this. And I went and found this. So yeah, I find the old tools have better grindings. They have more precise mating surfaces, and they sound, feel, and operate just better and more smoothly. Yeah. I am sure in the comments I will be getting some wonderful recommendations for modern tools that are also built to a high standard. I would love to hear your comments about that. And Shane Shellenbarger, I know I didn't quite answer your question, but that's only because of my poor reading comprehension. All right, let me put these guys back. Oh, I've got to redo this drawer because I have way too many tools in here, and it's just a total fight. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.